I got interested in this a few months ago. I mean, I take, like, I guess most of my friends, just ordinary walks through the city. Most of those are short, and many of them are to the same place, right? Grocery store or Starbucks. But I started to wonder what would happen if I took a walk across the entire city, if the city might fit together in a new way, or what it might turn up. Well, one of the funniest questions, of course, that comes up when you're about to set out on a somewhat ambitious walk is what to take. And I decided to take as little as possible, so I took a city map of Baltimore, and I took a couple of dollars, thinking I might need a drink somewhere, and I did take my cell phone. But John Muir worries about this too, as he's walking across rural Tennessee and Georgia in the 1860s, and he takes only his flower press and a couple of books, a book by Milton and the Bible, I think it is, and very little else. So Utah is one of my favorite avenues in Baltimore, especially the sense of grandiosity, some of the public sculptures, and just the breadth of the street. Reminds me of Commonwealth Ave in Boston, for example, or some of Manhattan's big avenues. I always enjoy walking along this stretch. It just suggests the sort of ambition behind 19th century Baltimore. And everyone knows walking is good for you, right? It's good for your heart. It keeps you in shape. It's emerged as a sort of environmental solution, a way to create a greener city. And really successful cities, I'd say New York City, for example, always have pedestrian traffic wherever you look. That's something Baltimore doesn't have as much of. I've been writing on pilgrimage a lot recently, and especially in the Middle Ages, often religious thinkers talk about walking as a sort of metaphorical pilgrimage, so that as one walks, even if you're walking to a sacred site, the very idea of walking becomes a metaphor for the journey of the soul or the spirit, even salvation, possibly. If I had one piece of advice for anyone else who wants to walk across the city, it's that you should not do what I did. Don't wear a pair of new shoes when you're walking. I took out a new pair of sneakers, and by mile 13 or 14, I was sitting at the Baltimore Rowing Club with my shoes off, nursing some blisters, and those lasted for about a week. So wear comfortable shoes. There was on Southern Avenue a series of absolutely precise traffic signs warning about upcoming speed humps. I think I mentioned that in the article, and I simply love the precision of the announcement: speed hump 57 feet ahead. I was really attracted to some of the cemeteries that I came across, also on Southern Ave. In fact, there's a wonderful, smallish, and largely Jewish cemetery that's now in somewhat decrepit shape, unfortunately. A number of the tombstones have fallen over, but that has a really beautiful meaning to me as well. I kept a running tally too while I was walking, just writing down every single church or synagogue, chapel that I saw, and also toting up liquor stores. And I was always curious about which would come out ahead, but fortunately it was churches, about 3-to-1 ratio. I think I had about 50 churches over the course of the walk. There's a huge literature on walking, and if you think about it, some of the most central works of Western literature are very much about walking. Dante essentially walks through hell, and the Odyssey isn't so much about walking, but it is about a journey home, and of course Odysseus does walk parts of it. One of the models I had in mind when I was doing the walk was Joyce's Ulysses, largely about a character who's walking around Dublin in the early 1900s. And so I got here just about noon, and I actually called a friend of mine up. She lives on Utah, and asked if she might be up for lunch. It's the sort of spontaneous encounter that characterizes much of Ulysses. But she was busy. We couldn't meet up, so ultimately I had to fend for myself. In trying to research this, I was more or less unable to come up with examples of other people who have tried something like this. I'm sure they're out there, and I'd love to hear from people who have tried walks like this of their own. I guess about a month after I wrote this piece, I saw a letter to the Sun in which a woman was recalling a night out. I think it was in the 1940s, where after a night on the bars, she'd made her way all the way back from East Baltimore to West. And in essence, that seemed like a walk across the city, as unintended as it was. She'd made her way by foot back home. So I'd love to hear from anyone who's done pieces like this.